should be familiar with IELTS. Okay, so the campaign seeks to end the practice of mandating Anglo-Africans to write English proficiency tests while seeking to study or work abroad. So far, the campaign has mobilized over 80,000 supporters. It has also engaged policymakers across Africa, Europe, and North America, and influenced policy changes in 30 universities around the world. That's quite an achievement. Mr. Ebenezer is also a Mandela Washington Fellow. He's a Civic High Fellow and a Bridge Fellow. He's also the winner of the first ever Sound City Africa MVP Award for Community Development, the Royal African Youth Leadership Award, and the NESG Exceptional Leadership Award, just to mention a few. Mr. Wikina is also an alumnus of the International Institute of Journalism, Abuja, the London School of Journalism, Harvard Kennedy School, and the Stanford Center for Professional Development. So please, River State SDG team, I want us to welcome our special guest speaker today. So please, I want you to write something on the chat box. Just say, welcome, Mr. Ebenezer Wikina. Please join me as I welcome him to the stage as he comes today to discuss with us the theme, digital literacy and its role in advancing quality education. Okay, are we welcoming him? Are we welcoming him already?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jessica. Really appreciate the welcome. Can I go ahead, Chimide?
Yes, you can. Welcome, Mr. Ebenezer.
Thank you. Okay. All right, thanks. Let me just share my screen. Just give me a sec. Get this out. Okay, send it. Hey, can you see my screen or is it still loading? It says loading from my end. Okay, great, it's up now. Okay, thank you guys. Thanks a lot for the invitation. I mean, once I saw River State, I didn't have any options, and so yes, because I mean, River State is home for me. So whenever the young people who are thinking of developments, you know, the SDGs, anything similar to what I do, you know, I'm always excited to be part of them. So thank you for inviting me to be part of you this evening. I made a little tweak on the topic. I'm talking about the digital literacy and how to advance SDG 4, but I've also
So I think he just disconnected now.
Yeah, I think the network is bad.
So sorry guys, my network went off. I just switched my connection now. Let's see if this is better. You can still hear me, yeah?
Yes,
we can hear you.
Okay, all right, thanks. So yeah, so I was saying that I put a little tweak on the topic to talk about remote learning, because I think there's so the thing with SDG 4, quality education, it can seem like a group thing, but I think you know, like if anyone who studies the future of education and where education is going, you know that remote learning, I mean, remote almost everything really, remote work, remote life, remote everything seems to be the place where most things are going to. So from an education perspective, what would that mean? And if you're a champion for the SDGs, you know, how are you incorporating and how are you preparing yourself to be able to learn in addition to the things you've already studied, but how do you continue to be a lifelong learner? Because that's what's, that's like one of the ethos and, beliefs about like remote constant learning. You're learning something every day and you'll be able to leverage digital tools. That's what digital literacy speaks about. So I'll talk about the fourth industrial revolution, talk about the SDGs and how all of these connect. I'll tell you a bit about the history of learning and some famous people who had been distance learners, talk about the forms and platforms for you to study and how we can promote these platforms as SDG advocates, and also share my story at the end. So that's the format that we're going to follow. So just like every other SDGs or every other SDG, goal 4 of the SDG has goals. So the thing with the SDG is a goal, sustainable development goals in the name, right? It's a goal, and the goal for so each of the 17 SDGs have their own goals, and these are the goals that different countries, organizations, NGOs, etc., are supposed to keep their eyes on as we're working towards achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. So when it was measured during the UN General Assembly, most of the measurement that happened, because we're halfway through now currently, right? We're halfway in. So if you're measuring it, what is the 7 years in? How much relevant skills do young people have for decent work? Do we have universal youth literacy yet? Does every young person across the world, have some bit of numeracy and literacy? Do we have education enough for global citizenship? The young people themselves as global citizens, can they fit into any system everywhere in the world? Do we have universal primary and secondary education? So if in Nigeria, if you're advocating for SDG 4, you'll be advocating for the government to achieve these targets in our own context. You understand? So the NYSC program, for example, is it helping people to get relevant skills ready for work? NYSC plus university, not just the NYSC program. What's the out of school children rate? Has it dropped over the past 5 years? Has it increased? What are we doing? So when you're advocating for any of the goals, not just SDG 4, you would be advocating in line with these. However, when I see it from a personal perspective, I see universal youth literacy and relevant skills for decent work as almost not impossible, but close to impossible to achieve if we continue to educate people with the current system. We are definitely never going to be able to achieve universal youth literacy and literacy for every young person, because we don't even have enough classrooms for every young person to be able to go into class and learn. We also, especially if you're in Nigeria like us, we also are stuck most times with redundant curriculum or curricula, where people say we're teaching repetitive stuff. We're teaching almost the same thing over and over again. Like if you ask your brother who graduated in 1990 something, it's the same thing that you're learning in 2015. Like that's not relevant skills, right? That's not even relevant knowledge. Let's not talk about skills, that people need for decent work. So when you look at all of this context and look at the fact that if we stay in the current system, we're not be able to achieve this, I think this is where remote learning comes in. And learning, so not just remote learning because my knowledge is that people who are part of this group might be doing their master's program, are active in the SDSN network. So currently what you're studying, how do you look for other sources of knowledge using digital tools to complement what it is that you're currently studying? That has been like the theme of my own life. How do I keep complementing and adding to what I know and getting better at it and knowing the best practices so that wherever I go to work, if I work with a US organization, a UK organization, an India organization, I can fit in anywhere in the world and look at the third goal, the education for sustainable development and global citizenship. Everyone's supposed to be able to be educated in a way that they can fit in to any context globally. So I just thought to set that context so that when I start talking about remote work, you understand why you understand why I'm saying this. Now, to give you some context from the Fourth Industrial Revolution. So in 2015, 2016, 2017, world leaders gathered in Switzerland. I don't know how many of you know the World Economic Forum. Of course, they're one of the active drivers of the Sustainable Development Goals. And world leaders gathered in those 3 years in Geneva to discuss what the new industrial revolution is going to be like. The world has had several industrial revolutions, right? Then we had steam engines, and there's mechanical, there's electrical, there's, when we had the conveyor belts. With every turn in technology, there was always a new revolution. I mean, there's a new turn in technology now with AI and big data and cloud computing. So we're in already what people mostly call Industry 4.0, which is a new industrial revolution. And even though I was very naive then, I was lucky to be part of the World Economic Forum Global Shapers community, the Port Harcourt Global Shapers Hub, which I think if you guys are in River State, you need to join that community when they do call for applications, if you would like to, because I think it's a good space to not just work locally, but also get opportunities to work internationally as well. Because like WEF sponsored me for two occasions. I was in South Africa to be part of the WEF on Africa, where I got a chance to speak. Then I was in Geneva for this conversation where the World Economic Forum launched this book. The founder, Professor Klaus Schwab, launched this book called The Fourth Industrial Revolution, which I think is an amazing book. I have a digital copy, by the way, so if you guys really want to have a look at it, I'll be happy to share that with you. But the book sort of tells you what world leaders are thinking about for the future. What will the future look like? How does it affect our everyday life? How would it affect our education? Which is what I'm going to talk about shortly. So these are some pictures from that engagement at the WEF. So how it's going to affect our education, affect our lives, affect our relationships, etc. Now, if you look at the industrial revolutions, we had first, second, third, and fourth. The first was mechanical production. We had railroads, steam engine. That's lasted between 1784 and somewhere between 1860 something, 1869, 1868. Before we then had electrical power. That was Michael Faraday and all the folks that did work like Tesla, that did amazing work to convert AC to DC. All of those kind of like inventions helped to change the way we do things. So with electricity came like a lot of power, right? I mean, literally a lot of power. And then like we invented things like the assembly line, so many things that then helped to move things forward. And then between 1870 and 1969-ish, we then had the third industrial revolution. So we had the second between 1890, and 1969, 1968. We had the third between 1969 and 2000-ish, or let's say 2020-ish, because that's where you had automated production, electronics, pretty much like what we have currently, right? But not as advanced as AI and robotics as we are thinking about for the future. I mean, during COVID, drones were delivering pizza, from restaurants to people's houses, right? I'm sure people like in 1950 couldn't have imagined that, right? So as time progresses, everything changes. Education also changes with it. It's sad that like it doesn't happen as much in our country, but education actually does change. Communication changes. I mean, there's a time when people communicated by writing on the wall. There's a time when the first radio was invented. Then there was a transatlantic cable that went through the Atlantic Ocean, a wire, connecting both sides of the different continents. We had a telephone, Bell Graham, then had an email in 1966, had the first internet called the ARPANET in 1969. Then, Sir Tim Berners-Lee did so much work. We started to create various versions of the internet. Then they started to have satellites and satellite internet. Internet became more advanced. If you move all the way forward, Wikipedia came in 2001. Wikipedia, currently being one of the sources of open source knowledge. There was Blogger in 1999, Facebook 2003, Twitter or X, as you call it now, 2006. So like, as you continue to move forward, technology, like I said, with the Industrial Revolution changes everything, changes communication, changes the way we learn, changes the way we live, etc. It's also changed the way we learn, especially from when people would write on slates. I mean, I don't think pencil is even the first level. If you ask your parents, there's a time when people were writing on slates and sitting on the floor to learn, right? It's sad that people are sitting on the floor in most of our communities now to learn. It shows that we haven't moved, right? But the world has moved ahead. But if you want to go for as far back as pencils, there's pencil, then there's blackboard, then there's VHS. You guys remember the VHS when people had cassette player. Then there was CD-ROM, and then laptop and internet, and now you have iPad and iPhone. Soon you just have glasses. Like, you know how Apple and Co advertising, just wear a glass that gives you ERO, an eyeglass that gives you ERO possibilities to view things around you. You know, very soon it's moving from glasses to just maybe like one chip on your hand or something like that. You know, so things are moving really, really fast. And if you want to trace like the history of distance learning, I mean, I'm moving fast. I'm going to share this deck with you guys if you want to have a look at it. If you want to look at the history of distance learning, it goes as far back as 1728. That's when like the first recording of a distance, you know, course sort of was done and shared by mail to someone as a correspondence course. I mean, you can go all the way down to 1989 when the internet started. Tim Berners-Lee proposed developments to like online document sharing, and then we had things like the World Wide Web, up until like 2012. When you had about 400,000 students in the UK studying online, up until now, right? And one of the questions I've always had is, if universities abroad have been able to like adapt and, you know, move themselves forward to the point where you can have 4 million people studying, 4 million is too much. Let's say 300,000 people studying physically on campus from all over the world, for example, at Oxford or Cambridge, and you have 400,000 people studying virtually. That's a student base of 800,000 people. But what we struggle with in the country, which I'll show you guys later, is that we have a situation where, because our classrooms are not really, I mean, there's a limit to how much classrooms you can build literally to house every single person, right? So because it's not moving as fast, and because we're not like embracing digital, I mean, during COVID, most schools shut down. Some people tried like WhatsApp and Zoom thing, but it just really didn't work because we haven't done it before. And we didn't have the infrastructure for it. And then of course, structural challenges like power and internet that the government needs to be able to fix also are there. So it wasn't it didn't work so well, right? But just thinking that we haven't really moved, like this UK investors by 2012 had 400,000, that's like 10 years ago. So think of how many people that they have now, hundreds of thousands and millions of students all over the world who are able to study. That is the only way you'll be able to meet goal 4. If you want to, you know, universal coverage for young people who are able to study, that's the only way. And if you now take that to a personal perspective and say, how much do I even know? You know, like when you talk about literacy, how much do you even know as an individual? And how much can you continue to expand your knowledge because if you want to advocate for something, you need to be at the forefront of it. For us in Nigeria, a very good initiative, I think this was by Obasanjo's government. No, this wasn't the Obasanjo's government. I think it first started, the Obasanjo's government brought it back again. So this is the National Open University, which is a great idea, but they've now started to make it like a physical school. People go there to go and write exam and are having classes physically. And I'm like, what are you doing? It's an open university. Like, you're not supposed to be doing all this kind of physical, like, you know, have course rep and all those things that we have in our regular school. Like, if you want to do a distance learning program, do a distance learning program, because we're not doing it that particular way. Anyway, so it was founded in 1983, then suspended in 1984, but I think it was brought back in 2001 by Obasanjo's government. That's when democracy just newly came in. So like it's been existing. I think there are many more study centers all across the country, but I think that they need to be able to think more about the model so they can get a lot more people to be able to be part of that program. Because if you want to expand coverage, that's something that we should be thinking of. Just the final context setting before I go right into the thing that we should talk about. So if you look at education, the first industrial revolution and the fourth industrial revolution, they are very, very different. In the first industrial revolution, it was mostly about mastery of reading, maths, formula, physics, all of those kind of things. But education now, I mean, if you study in forward-thinking institutions currently, I mean, if you think about folks at Harvard and all of these institutions at Stanford, they're thinking of how they can develop you as a whole person. So how do you learn emotional intelligence? How do you take care of your mental health? How do you care for your intellectual health, your social health? You know, nobody in our current schools care about your mental. You're like, if you want to go and kill yourself, go and kill yourself. Nobody cares about your mental health, right? But education in this era, you know, has gone beyond just cramming and passing. Also, I mean, it was Teachers' Day yesterday, right? The role of the educator has gone beyond being the expert to being the facilitator. So I did the program at Harvard. You're going to see how soon. A few years ago, 5 years ago. And what the lecturer always did was facilitate conversations. They never came and said, this is this. We know this more than all of you. Yeah, this is this. And even so, our own program that I did was a professional program. So you had people who had worked for 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, all in our class. So these are experts already. So you cannot come and tell them that you're even more expert than them, because they might even argue with you and might know more than you. So the role of an educator now is to facilitate conversations that lead to knowledge discovery. Like, ask questions that make people to begin to think more. You've gone from the regular system of, K-12, once you just do 6-3-3-4, do your 4 years university, maybe do 1 or 2 years masters, you've learned everything you need. No, it's lifelong now. Learning continues over and over again, because there's there's a new technology, there's a new discovery. Things keep happening and keep moving on. So it's very important that you're able to catch up and keep learning, to be able to remain relevant in your own sector or whatever field it is you want to work in. The expertise as well is not that teachers knows best, is that anyone can teach. That's why you can have people who might not be, who might not go to education, college of education, but actually can become masters in a particular field. That's why you have all these tech people who might not go to study that particular thing, but have built solutions in that field and have become, in quotes, masters in that particular field. Don't get me wrong, we actually do need to invest in teacher education. In fact, I think that if the government will do anything to help us achieve the SDGs within the next 4 to 5 years, is to invest massively in teacher education, upgrade our teacher colleges, University of Education, College of Educations, all across the country, and even establish more where needed, and think of ways where we can begin to upgrade the way that's like, we need to pay teachers well. You can't be paying someone who has studied for 4 or 5 years 35,000 and expect the person to be like Einstein and teach you the best thing, especially with the whole situation in the country currently. So I think that teacher education is something that we can talk about later. That's also a huge problem for us in our class. But the last point there that talks about access, right? Physical classroom used to be the only way to learn, but now anybody can learn anywhere, anytime, anyhow, on any device, that they definitely want to learn. Knowledge is now at our fingertips. And so I think that if we really want to be able to achieve the SDGs, we need to move our education from the first industrial revolution to the fourth industrial revolution, because this is where it's supposed to be. We're still way back behind in the first industrial revolution, and we need to move forward. Some famous people who did some distance learning. Steven Spielberg, you guys might know Steven Spielberg, directed so many movies like Jurassic Park and all these huge movies. He never went to a classroom. Nelson Mandela, himself, especially when he was incarcerated, I think he did a full master's program while in prison. Was it 1 or 2 master's program actually he did while in prison using a distance learning course? I think he did one with Manchester University and one other university, just doing correspondence back and forth. They send him his tests, he writes back, etc. These are a lot of people. I mean, Venus Williams, the Williams sisters, as we know, their father took them, made their life to be dedicated to tennis, but also knew that they had to learn how to be emotionally smart and, other things. So he was able to teach them using distance learning, and they were able to learn quite a bit. Okay, so that's all me learning, just laying the ground for what I want to talk about. So I've just explained to you why things are moving fast, the era we're in currently, and if we're going to achieve our targets, how we need to be thinking of our education sector and what we should be advocating for. But also, more importantly now, as an individual, if we say we are committed to lifelong learning as SDG advocates, as young people who are in this generation, what are the ways we can learn from it? How can we keep learning? What is the best way to keep learning as a young person? And what are some forms that I've personally experienced as an individual to keep learning lifelong and leveraging digital technologies to ensure that you're able to do that? This might be an irony, but I think the first way you can keep learning as a lifelong learner is through books. Now, this might not be online, not just like online books, but I think that like people have written even physical books, like their guidebooks and textbooks, and several books in different fields that you can use to study and learn anything basically that you want to learn. There's so many universities, there's so many bookshops. Quite a number of them are closing down, sadly, because people are not buying books as much as possible. But there's so many bookshops. If you live in River State in Port Harcourt, there's a bookshop I used to always go to on UST Road. It's called, I think, Century Bookshop, that's called. Back in the day, they used to have books, foreign books from all over the world in almost any field, like medicine and accounting and engineering. So like just growing up, I always loved writing, like I've always loved to write. I wanted to be a journalist. So when I tried to get into school and had so many issues with like JAMB and all of those things, we're going back and forth. When I started to like buy books, it was there I usually went to buy a lot of books. One of the books I bought that's on the screen, Right to Learn, is a book by late Professor Donald Murray. Amazing book. I think I stumbled on this in 2009. Taught me a lot about writing, like basic writing. And just by reading the book, to be honest, I went from someone who, because like just in 1 year, I think, of reading the book, I started working the year after. Like I left secondary school in 2007. I started working in 2010, October of 2010. Just from studying the book. I actually didn't go to any journalism school yet. I eventually went to journalism school, but I didn't go to any journalism school yet. Just from reading the book alone, I was able to understand that. I mean, some tips if you want to use guidebooks to be able to study and to learn and to keep learning stuff. Some key tips that I've learned over time is, first, it's always best to maintain a constant study time. And that's what school actually tries to build on. The reason why you go to school every day for 5 days and learn this particular course every time, so like you have break in between and then learn this to this to that, is because your brain tends to assimilate when there is a sort of ritual to learning, right? So if you go at a certain time, you know that this is time between now and now, my brain is ready to study. So your brain knows that, okay, I'm here now, so I have to think of nothing else but this particular thing that I'm currently listening to. So if you are now doing guidebooks on your own, it can be hard because like you need to personally discipline yourself and say, you know what, I have to create a particular study time where I would sit down, keep a journal, read, put transfer some notes from what I read down, because the process of writing down what you're learning is also helping you to remember it. It's going to help you to, assimilate it better. Not cram, because cramming really is a very tough exercise, but to assimilate what you're learning, it helps you to do that easier. Once you're reading, you're writing, you're journaling, you're asking questions, all of that is really, really helpful. Ensure as well that, you do practical exercises, because guidebooks often have practical exercises that you can easily complete. Google, so for students, I often recommend Google Scholar as opposed to just Google alone. Go to Google Scholar to find like academic information, books, etc., all of those things. You can find them there. There's Library Genesis, archive.org, etc. Again, I'm going to share the slides with you so you can find all of these things. How much time do I have left, guys, so that I know how fast I should move? I know it's 7:36. Okay. How much time do I have, Chinese? Yes.
Yes, you have less than 25 minutes, please.
25 minutes more. Okay. All right. Thanks.
You have less than 25 minutes.
Okay, I have less than 25 minutes. So I have about like 20 minutes.
Yes. You should end by 7:55.
7:55. Okay. All right. Thanks. That's very useful. Okay. So the
7:55.
Sure. Thank you. The second way is by MOOCs. You might have heard of MOOCs before. MOOCs are massively open online courses or massively open online courses. These are usually like just short courses. They're not made to teach you about how to fly to the moon or anything. They're basically just, maybe there's a new thing about financial literacy. I don't teach you about just that introduction to financial literacy, just that basic. They build a MOOC around it. It can be on Coursera or EDX or any of those platforms, and then they just share it out there. People just apply. You see like 1 million, 7 million people have taken a particular course. They get certifications as well for that course. So yeah, so you can have thousands and thousands of students for a particular course. If you're looking at MOOCs as well to be able to study, it might not give you an in-person experience, but it's usually a step higher from guidebooks, because like with MOOCs, you're not just guidebooks is just you reading. You don't know if anyone has the book, but with MOOCs, at least you feel like there are other people studying with you. Some MOOCs have like forums where you can have questions and engage with other people and talk about whatever it is that you're currently studying. So that's how MOOCs work. Class Central, one of the sites that gives you like the Google for online courses. If you want to be able to find the best online course for whatever it is you want to do, Class Central is that site. They said these are the top 5 MOOC providers: Coursera, EDX, SureTang, Udacity, FutureLearn. There are millions of courses. 30 million on Coursera. That's a lot of courses. So it shows you all of these kind of things that you can go and learn. Okay, so just a step higher from MOOCs, you have micro-credentials. Micro-credentials are specialized they go deeper than MOOCs. They are specialized programs. So you have things like micromasters, like nano degrees, right? So these ones are specialized in a particular thing and they go deeper to give you, they're more skill-based, right? And they often, you can think of them more as a collection of MOOCs. So like you have small things into a big collection where you can then study about a particular thing. They're not a full-time degree, but you're having many organizations. So like, I think there was a time where Google started something called their, I can't remember what they call it now. I think it's a life something enhancement program, but it's a specialized, it's also a micro-credential where Google teaches about IT and data analysis and all of these things. And if you take that program, you can actually, the people who have finished the program from Google and have applied to work at Google using that program with no other degree, just that program alone, they're able to go in. So like there's some organizations now that are focused on specialization where people like not just the broad learning GES 101. I mean, all those things have value, right? But they want to be able to know that you have a specialized knowledge in that particular thing that they want you to be working on, such that, you know, they are sure that this person did nano degree or did some micromasters, so knows how to be able to do this particular thing. So you're going to see more of these things over time as education progresses. There are many of these sites where you can find micromasters, Udacity, EDX, all of them are there. You can always find them when I share the slides with you. Now you can also have online degrees, which are like your typical degree programs where you go to do a full-time 4-year program. But online degrees can be cut down into 2 years, 3 years. Some people even do 1.5 years for online degree programs, depending on whatever school it is you're at. And one of the things that help you to or one of the benefits to online degrees is if you want to learn at the best university in the world, you know, you might not be able to afford the physical program because like some of those programs at Harvard are like $50,000, $90,000, right? It's very, 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 very expensive, especially if you want to calculate with our current dollar rates. But if you have the online versions, they are usually very, very cheaper. So there are some other universities that might not be Harvard and all these universities, but have very, very good like online programs that people can easily get into. Next Ford University is one of them. There are many of them. Do well to Google. University of People as well, sorry, is also one of them as well. So do well to check them out. You can take programs, you know, from like business administration to people that go as deep as like people and human resources, depending on whatever it is you definitely want to learn. All of these things are definitely there. So I'm saying this because you might have studied like development or like social development or something, right? And you want to go into the field to work. And maybe you see an NGO that is doing some work in finance or public health, you know, something like that, where just your knowledge of development and, you know, M&E and all these about development things, social development might not be enough, right? Instead of going to go and do another program for another, you know, 2 years or 1 year to go and do a master's program to learn health, which I think might be a waste of time. Why not, you know, start a program that you can do online, virtually, and use that as, you can even start working and be doing that as a part-time program. I think that employers are even really excited when they see people who have aspirations and are like saying, you know what, I'm applying for this thing. I don't have all of the knowledge yet, but I've started a master's program virtually already that I'm studying. And I'm sure that in the next year or 2 years, I'll be done and I'll become a master in this particular field, you know, and I'm going to learn on the job as well. HR people are often excited, like it blows their mind when they hear those kind of things. So just from like a practical stance, that could be a way you can apply your, you can leverage the online learning thing, you know, in your own personal life. I mean, this is just showing you the the cost difference for an on-campus degree and an online degree. And one thing people don't know is when you do your online degree, nobody actually says University of Bradford or whatever universities you went to online. No, they give you the actual certificate that you get when you go to a physical program. You know, so that's just to show you how much things have moved and how far people have moved on. So like, see the difference in cost, the difference in everything, in stress and everything, you know, and if you're able to discipline yourself enough, you can do an online degree in a shorter time and, you know, get the same value as people who are going there physically. So that's online for online degrees. So I talked about guidebooks, I talked about MOOCs, I talked about micro-credentials. I mentioned what else? online degrees as the fourth one, and the fifth one now is executive or professional programs. This is mostly, so this is not academic. Academic programs often would question, think more about theory, give you like some more grounding in, if you want to understand why we're learning this thing, you go more into the why and understand who the people are and everything. But professional programs are like, what is the thing? Like, this is the thing you should learn. Just go straight into it. So it depends on whatever it is that you need to choose either the academic routes or the professional routes. I've done quite a number of professional programs in several fields. I was just talking to you about biomimicry. I don't know how people here know about biomimicry. That's a field I've been in for close to 10 years. I got a chance to study professionally in 2022. I think it was, I got a $3,000 scholarship to study that. And I mean, amazing field, right? That's something I've been excited to apply. We're thinking of building a collective for biomimicry here in Nigeria. So just professional programs are, they can be expensive. They can be expensive. So most of the time, this Harvard and all these universities use them to make money, but they can be expensive if you get like funding support and everything for them. They're actually really, really good. They give you a chance to learn, in a short time what you might take you a long time to pretty much study. But as well, they give you like a chance to have a network. I spoke about the program I did earlier. Just that network of alumni at Harvard is ridiculous. Like people that do anything. Just imagine the best of the best. I mean, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala is a Harvard alumni as well, and everybody's all on the same platform, right? So just imagine the kind of network you can get from the executive programs. And I think our universities as well here in the country need to start thinking of ways they can design executive programs that people from like Benin Republic and Ghana and Kenya can come and study things in Nigeria. That's the way to even raise revenue for our universities. But that's by the way. So that's executive and professional programs as one of the ways you can study virtually. So I did this kind of summary to talk about, the duration, the cost range, and for who. So if you want to do MOOC, who should be doing MOOC? Looking for quick and general knowledge on a particular topic, you should do a MOOC. A MOOC usually lasts between 2 and 6 weeks. The cost range is between being free and $50 for a certificate. People want to do micro-credentials. Some micro-credentials are actually like MIT has a micro-master's program in data, economics, and development policy. For those of you who are doing work in development, I recommend that you pay for each course under the micro-credential. It can last between 4 weeks and 2 years, depending on when you want to finish it. But if you want to specialize in like development, understanding poverty, how to calculate poverty, how to, all of these things around our social register that's, that we're just fulfilling ourselves in this country. They talk about all of that, how to include like statistics and differentiations, all of those work. So yeah, it's a really good program. So that's how I go on to explain this. I'll share the slides with you. I don't have so much time, it's already 7:47, but you can have time to look at it and choose whatever program works for you. Class Central, like I said, the link is in the slide for you to be able to check out Class Central. So I will share my story now, and then we go on to ask questions. So my story is not different from many stories that you hear everywhere. I've lived in Port Harcourt all my life, to be honest, save for times when I've had to leave the country or leave the state for work. I've been here, so like I'm like every other random person that you find on the streets in River State or Port Harcourt. So growing as a kid, I actually was like your regular, regular 90s child, study hard, get a B, get an A, you want to come first, all those kind of things. I think there was a time in primary school that I came first consecutively for 4 or 5 terms. So like, that kind of kid that's always study hard and everything. And then I got in secondary school at 9 years old, finished at 14 plus 15. And then, so I waited 1 year because they're like, oh, you're so young, wait till like you're 16, let's write the next year. So I waited 1 year, then wrote the next year. I wrote this the first year for JAM. I think I scored 211, I beat 212 or something like that. I can't remember what I scored now. But I couldn't get admission into university. Then I wrote the next year, the center was seized. Wrote the third year, I got 240 something. Then I got like 50 over 60, I beat something, 40 over 60. That time was Uniport. I was trying to get into gas engineering. I did that, and I still didn't get admission. Like the list came out, first list came out, like, don't worry, you scored high, you're still going to get in second list. Second list came out, story. Then I wrote the fourth year, then it was seized. so it now started to seem like a spiritual problem, right? And So like, I mean, the easiest thing to do in that situation is that you get depressed and get sad and everything about yourself. I mean, there's so many of those people who actually are facing the same thing. And I think that this is actually a problem that people do not know about, but actually is a problem in the country. For those people who are able to go to university and get admission, you're actually only 1 in 4 people who apply to get into university in the country who get admission. 75% of those who apply actually do not get into school. And sometimes you might think that those people do not exist, but they actually do exist. There are many people who have written JAMB multiple times who get tired of writing so many times, just choose any course and just be like, you know, let me just get into any course and just get into school, you know, and don't have direction for their lives, and you know, their whole dreams just get ruined, right? And there are some reasons why this is happening, why we have 75% of those who apply for, you know, out of the 1.5 million people who apply to get into school, why, you know, only 1 in 4 of them get into university. The first is that we actually do have few institutions. If you want to compare our institutions to that of the US, so we're about 180 million people in Nigeria, and we have, okay, let's say we're about 200 million people in Nigeria. They say we are 200 million. I'm not sure we are, but let's say we're 200 million people in Nigeria because we haven't done a census in almost 17 years. But let's say we're 200 million people in Nigeria, and we have about 170 institutions, tertiary institutions. This is public, private, you know, polytechnic, everyone put together, 170. And then the US has about 330 million people, and they have 5,000 institutions, guys. Like they have college. In one state can have like 4 or 5 universities, right? Some are private, some are public. I mean, they have so many of them. And so that's why, you know, if you compare the numbers, why does the US not have this kind of situation where you have only 1 in 4 people get admissions? Because they have so many options. If you have 5,000 versus 100 and something, you know, it sort of shows you the disparity between both of them. But again, can Nigeria afford 5,000 something? Like, we've almost stolen a lot of the money we made during our oil boom, so such that even the current universities are going on strike over and over again. You know, so that's why, as young advocates, we need to advocate for good governance. That's one of the most important things that I think we need to advocate for, because without good governance, without SDG-17, I feel like most of the SDGs are just going to suffer, right? So that's something that we need to think about, because that's why we cannot even advance the schools we have currently to even think of building more schools and expanding our university system. You know, so it means that we're stuck in a fix. And that's why, you know, one of the things I spoke about at one of the TED Talks that I gave is that we need to begin to think of ways to innovate. And so that's why remote learning and digital learning might be the best way for us to think about going forward, because we can't even afford to even build new classrooms. I mean, the ones that even exist are currently trying to increase their school fees to even survive, you know, so that's something we should think of. Second reason is that there's a high contest for sciences. I mean, I don't know if you guys grew up the same time I grew up, but if you grew up the same time I grew up, you know, science is like the thing. Everybody's like, oh, we want to be a doctor, or I want to be an engineer, I want to be some med lab thing, you know, which isn't bad. But when parents begin to push all of that, you know, into kids' mind, you have children who are rushing to want to become all of that. And, you know, everyone just goes for science and people go for arts. So that can also be one of the reasons why we have that. I have 3 minutes to go. There's also corruption in the admission process. All of that becomes a very huge problem. I mean, you guys know the corruption issues that we have in the country. And then we have a huge and growing population. About 70% of Nigeria is under 30 years. That's a huge, like that's almost 100 and something million people under 30 years. So it means that you have to school all those people, you have to house all those people, you have to, you know, how would they get jobs? Who will work? Where would they work? You know, so I think these are the kind of questions that we need to be thinking about as people who care about like development and the future of the country. These are the questions that our leaders need to think about, not think about flying from one place to the other and buying fine cars. They need to be thinking about how they can solve the problems of now and the problems of the future, because we have a huge youth population that can become a disaster if we don't have the right way to solve it. Okay, because of my time, I'll just move a bit faster so that I can wrap this up. So yeah, so I try all of those things. I couldn't get into school. I do a program at RIFCAS. I think RIFCAS now is called Port Harcourt Polytechnic. Did a program for 2 years. And I did a program in electrical engineering. So I just thought that, you know what, why did I even do the science thing? Yeah, because I love to write and study, right? So maybe I should have just focused on writing and studying as opposed to doing journalism, as opposed to getting into this mix where I'm, you know, having to go and start doing, you know, struggling to do engineering that I'm not, you know, naturally gifted for. So, yeah, long story short, I then, you know, start studying online, and this is as far back as 2009, 2010. I don't know how many people might know this Nokia Express music phone. I don't know if you guys are old enough to know this, but there's Nokia Express music phone that I had. And this is what I actually started to use to learn. And even when I started to work in 2010, after going to cyber cafes to blog, I would use my phone to be able to check my emails and reply emails and write emails to people and do some preliminary writing on my phone, and to be honest, that's always became the foundation for all I've done in my career. Today I work at Chain, all the work I do at Chain.org as one of the biggest social development and advocacy organizations in the world. All the work that I do working across Africa, all of that foundation was built from these experiences that I had, from learning early, learning online, all the things I learned alone. I think all of those things helped me. And because of time, I know Jessica was soon on mute to stop me, but this became my education pathway. So from studying online, I did Riffcast, did some program at AIBC, and I went to International Institute of Journalism in Abuja, and I think that's the last time I went to a physical school. Everything else had been virtual. Harvard, Wayne State University, London School of Journalism, MicroMasters. I've had opportunities to travel to some of the schools physically because of work and some people sponsoring me for trips, but everything else had been virtual. It's been on my own. I've studied them online. I've done a business program. I've done biomimicry program. I've learned almost anything you can imagine, and I continue to learn every day because there's always something new. There's something new in our field, especially if you work in development. There's a new concept. There's a new everything, and so you can't be advocating for quality education if as an individual you're not even learning every day. You can't use the Nigerian learning as it's never enough, because what we are even learning is not even up to the latest things. So you need to be able to remain on your toes and continue to learn every day and ensure that you can leverage these digital tools to continue to learn. So my career, built on my learning. Everybody I've worked with more than 30 organizations from up to 4 continents. From Port Harcourt, I'm not telling you that I've traveled to quite a number of them, but everything I've done has been from my house in Port Harcourt, my family house when I was there, and now that I'm married, I changed the org that I work at currently. I still work remotely. I volunteered for the United States Congress. I worked with the Congresswoman through the Mandela Washington Fellowship. I did it remotely. I worked at OGP, they paid me remotely. I worked at Al Jazeera, they paid me remotely. I worked at, do you understand? All these organizations that I've personally worked at had all come out because of just being able to use the internet and being able to explore, and being able to apply for like fellowship programs. There's so many opportunities now for us in our generation, whether you want to apply for fellowships or grants or scholarship programs to study, it doesn't matter whether you're from River State or whatever you're from. You don't need to know anybody, just be ready to apply and, explain why you think you want this program. There are many people from River State who have applied for these things and I've gotten them. I have friends and, colleagues who have gotten everywhere, I've personally experienced that as well. So I think that's something that we should think about because that's also a way to learn and continue to also grow as a young professional. Okay, guys. Sorry, I overshot the time, but that's it. Thank you for listening. I hope this was useful. I'll share the slides and I'm happy to take any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ebenezer. We're indeed very grateful for this very insightful webinar. I believe we've all learned a whole lot. I've learned a whole lot. So we're really grateful for this. Right now, we'll be taking questions. So if you have any questions for Mr. Ebenezer, please just signify so that we can take your questions now and then he can answer. Okay. Our representative, state representative Chimizi has his hands up. Yes, you can ask your question, sir.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Mr. Ebenezer. Thank you for such a wonderful presentation. Just your story alone is a lot of motivation for many of us. So my question is should every child be educated to the university level? Now, why I ask this question is that we've seen instances where now we have the current ongoing issue whereby federal universities have increased their tuition fee, and if you go online on Twitter, you see some person saying that the university education is not actually for everybody. So now I'm asking, should child get educated to university level? Another reason why I'm asking this question is also that you see that I currently have a cousin brother who I was talking to recently, and I discovered that he's doing poorly in his university. I mean, sorry for bringing this family issue here, but I just want to use this as an example. I checked his current CGPA, it was even third class. So I was talking to him, why did he even go to school in the first place when you know you're not going to study? Well, like it was his parents that pushed him, that they want their child to go to university. You know this African parents mentality. So those are the two angles to my. The reason why I'm asking the question: parents pushing their children to go to university when those children may not actually want to go to university, and the ongoing conversation that university education is not actually for everybody. So I would like to get a response to that. Thank you.
Trust me, Chime, this is a very beautiful question. I think this is the kind of question that, and I love that this is a question coming from you. This is the kind of question that I think our policymakers need to be thinking about. The truth is, not so the way our university system is currently, because our university does not cater for every kind of talent and gifting and everybody's kind of like the kind of passion people might have, right? I think that not every single person has to go to the university system the way it currently is. Because you notice some people even go and then don't use it. Some people go and say, I went for this 4 years because of my parents. I'm dropped in the certificate. I'm going to learn something else. I'm going to learn something they're passionate about, like fashion or like something else that they should have spent those 4 years investing in. Just imagine that they spent those 4 years building vocational skills in that particular field. They could have gone way, way, way farther than where they are. They will not start from scratch in 4 years and start learning everything all over again. So I don't think every single person, and that's why our vocational, we're supposed to be able to match our polytechnic vocational education system and our current university system. They should be on the same level. It's actually sad that we have country that's very hierarchical, where like, if you're polytechnic, it means that you're lower below people who went to university. If you're college, you're lower than people who went to polytechnic. That hierarchical system makes people feel like everyone needs to then run to university so they can feel like they are among the top people. But the truth is, university does not even have enough classrooms for every single person. And everyone's passion might not be in the professional field. So why not have a system where we invest in our vocational education institutions where they have the best sex? So people want to learn, for example, learn furniture design, and that's what they want to do. There are people who have furniture shops, and that's what they use for their life. True or false? There are people who just have furniture shops. There are people who just are mechanics, and that's what they use to survive for their life. So what if they actually go to school, vocational school, to actually learn that? There are people who have fashion design shops, and that's what they use for their life, and that's what they are doing to survive. Why not just have a place where they can go study actually that and actually learn that, instead of go to study something else for 4 or 5 years with strike and then come back and start learning that thing all over again? So I actually think that this is a question that we need to be asking ourselves moving forward. The truth is that the tuition fee is going to keep increasing with all this dollar and all these things going high, cost of living going high. Tuition fee will keep going high, even if the president has said that there are loans and everything. How the kind of barriers that are in that loan, how efficient we want to be able to get it, So I think a better investment will be to start thinking of ways to upgrade our vocational and our vocational technical education systems, so that people can actually go there as well and build skills and use those skills for their life and get certification that they can use anywhere else and not feel like they are lower or below anybody else. So just like you said, your cousin who might have a particular skill, who might be actually really good in like fixing stuff. Like, he might just be, there are people who they never gone to any school to learn anything, but they can just repair phones. Like just by their head, they just know that, okay, if I open this phone, I can find this in here and find that in here, and they can just build that. What if they actually go to learn it and become good at it and start working at Siemens and working at Samsung? Like the kids that build our phones that we use, right? Our Samsung phones. And I mean, Samsung also gives like a lot of staff power for those who build iPhones. The phones that we use are built by people who went to technical college. They're not built by university graduates like the rest of us. They are built by people who went to technical colleges. So maybe that's something we should think about going on into the future, because I think that's a very important conversation that we need to have as a country. And, because all of us who have bias for people who went to polytechnics and all those things, we need to start rethinking and recalibrating our minds. We need to know that, we are doing more harm than good by looking down on institutions that actually can give us the manpower that we need. Do you know that, let me just say this last thing before I close. Do you know that people that do tiling, you know that it's not easy to find Nigerians who can tile very well. Like, and that when they want to do like big organized, big buildings and want to tile them, do you know people go as far as Benin Republic to get tilers? Do you know that some fashion organizations currently in Nigeria get people from Togo and Benin to be able to sew in their shops because they don't have Nigerians who are willing to learn and master the skill to that point so they can sew for that kind of large quality items. Do you know? But we have our population, 70% of our population under 30 years, you know. So you have that kind of huge population boom. Why are we not leveraging that? Why are we just continue to do the same thing we have been doing with the system and seeing that have high unemployment rates? You can reduce the number and say it's 4, you can reduce the number and say it's 2, but the reality is there on the streets that many people do not have jobs, or even people that have jobs are not paid well. So why not find ways to invest in people's talents and giftings and help them to live more peaceful life? Yeah, I mean that's just what I wanted to say. So I agree with you that exactly. I can see your comments, Daniel. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's it. That's what's paying the bills for you. So imagine that you actually are passionate about that and actually went in to study that. And actually build skills in that and continue to build skills in that. There are people who will be like security architecture is a huge sector already, whether you're doing cyber security or physical security. So, like, I mean, trust me, like, I feel like the possibilities are endless. And because it's something that's, and again, sorry guys, I'm using this as a way to vent here, but sorry, because people, so if you're able to help people to build skills in areas that they are talented, because my personal belief is that God made everyone with a unique gift, right? If you're able to build skills for people in areas that they're talented for, it would take just little effort for them to be able to fly very high. I mean, you can see it in sports. You can see it. I mean, the reason why Messi looks like he's a god is because that's his talent, literally his talent. And it's obvious that that's what he was born to do, you know. And so little effort it does makes it look like it's the best thing that we've ever seen in the entire world. So imagine that our JSS3 class, before people move to SS3 and start doing science and arts and all those things. Just imagine that gap between JS3, because people write junior WAEC that we never ever use, which I think is a waste of time. But imagine that we do that JS3 class and just do like self-discovery for people. And people can then discover them themselves. That's long break. They easy to go and do like internship somewhere. Like imagine kids who are learning, going to go and say, okay, I want to be a doctor. Let me go and see what doctors even do. And by the time they go there, they will know that I don't want to be a doctor anymore. I want to be something else, you know, or even say, okay, yes, I want to be a doctor. I've seen what they do and I really love it. Imagine that you have that space and, you know, they use it to actually discover themselves and question themselves and learn so many things, right? Such that when they now go to the senior secondary school, they actually know where they want to fit into, right? And the senior secondary school should not just be art science. There's always something in between arts and science. So social sciences can come in there. There can be something else in vocational, something that people can also fit in, right? Everyone now fits in there and now knows that they're going purposefully and they know because they're now moving towards what they want to do and they're going purposefully towards it. People don't like the more like easy because people are in their own field already. As opposed to when they now finish secondary school, they now start saying, what would I do now? Okay, what do I want to do? Or they even finish university and I start saying, okay, what do I want? Because there's no job, you know. So I think that we need to rethink the entire system. I feel like there's so many gaps in the system. Thanks, Chimeze. Sorry, I've taken too much time.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you, Mr. Ebenezer. Yes, Chimeze, please stop.
Okay, and thank you. I have one more question before I let you go. So, talking about the SDG goals, in general, the 17 of them. So, I want to ask your honest opinion. Now, the target here is 2030, right? So, where do you think we can achieve these goals before the year 2030? I mean, 2030 is just about 7 or 6 years from now. And if you look at many of these indicators, no poverty, no hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, what do you think? Do you think we can even get? For me personally, at this rate, I don't even think we've gotten to 50% of it. So, where do you think is we can get to that target by the year 2030? Thank you.
So, when you say we, do you mean like the world, or do you mean Nigeria? Nigeria.
Yes. Nigeria perspective.
Nigerian perspective. Okay. That's an important question. I don't know. I think that everything is planning. To be honest, I think that if we have a better plan in place, you know, the SDGs are not something far away. The SDGs are like what our health ministry is trying to do. It's like what our education ministry is trying to do. Like we already have the blocks that we can use to build upon for the SDGs. We have the ministries, we have the states have the ministries, national has the ministries. Like you have all of these things. You have the national budget that goes into these various sectors, right? It's just being able to use it. And I think we need to have a much more, like, it's obvious that just as Chimeze said, I think it's obvious that we might not be able to meet the targets in the ideal sense, but we can do at least 60-70%. Just that, like, I feel like we can push ourselves with it over the next 7-8 years and do at least 70% if we have a structured plan. And I know it's possible. You don't have to go far. Just if you just look to our left and look at the United Arab Emirates, I feel like the first time I went to the UAE, I was behaving like a mad person. I was maybe like a village person because like it seems like a world so different from where we are. And you will not believe that we've been drilling oil more than those people. We got independence more than those people. In fact, we had like a 13-year head start on the UAE. They were literally a desert. But the fact that they were able to come together and plan in their deserts and say that one day we'll be able to build the highest building in the world, the highest hotel in the world, get the entire world to come down here, host the World Cup, do all of those things. And they did this systematically, year after year. It's not hard. It's planning. It's not like you don't need any miracle thing to fall from the sky. Nigeria doesn't need any miracle or too much prayer. It's planning. It's just making sure that we do the plan systematically. This state, you have this, you do this. You have this, you do this. Let's check ourselves by 1 month. Have we done it? No. Why didn't we do it? Let's go and do it. Do you understand? Just that systematic following and planning. That's what is missing. So if we put that in place, I think we might be able to achieve at least 70% of this. And the way the SDGs are, there will always be something new. There might be a new goal. I mean, SDGs will last by 2030. There will be another goal, maybe artificial intelligence goals or something. I don't know what the new goal is going to be, right? But there will always be a goal. But the idea is that the goals keep governments on their toes. If there are no goals, everyone will just be like that, right? But when there are goals, the UN is saying, let us be working towards something. Let's be on our toes, working towards something, trying to achieve something. Once you have those goals, you're sure that there's something we're working towards and achieving. So I just think that it's an opportunity for us as a country to actually have a plan to fit into those goals. Because those goals, if you read them very well, they are very ideal goals. That's the kind of way you want the world to be, where everyone's educated, everyone has good healthcare, women can lead. It doesn't mean because they are women they should not be the second or a vice. Women can actually be president, they can be governors, they can be everything. Everyone has access. People who have disabilities also have access to be leaders. Everyone has good and decent jobs. We are taking care of the climate very well. Our environment is clean. We're harnessing renewable energy. All those things are very good things, right? But I think that it's left for countries to now plug into them and say, okay, how do we achieve them from our own context? And begin to budget and fund to be able to do them. But I'm sorry, guys, the kind of leaders that we have currently is a far cry. That's my closing notes. Is a far cry. So it means that our advocacy needs to be louder. That says yes, we need to speak louder. We need to ask louder and ensure that we hold our leaders accountable to do the right thing. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Ebenezer. Mr. Ebenezer, please, I have a question.
Sure.
On digital literacy and its role, how it affects quality education. I want to know if there is hope for the Nigerian educational system, because personally, like I've thought about it and I've wondered why the government, or let me say the educational sector, is not really doing so much about implementing digital literacy into our system. I mean, we have a lot of courses in the universities that are supposed to be updated, but they are not. Search for courses, you see modern curriculums, you see courses that are relevant to the world, and they're not in the Nigerian system. So what is the hope for Nigerian education system? Do we have hope at all, or are we're just moving anywhere the wind blows us, but nothing new is going to happen?
The hope is me and you to keep asking for this thing that you just said. To be honest, I think that we are the hope, because the truth is we make up majority of the population of the country. So we are the hope. We are the ones that need to keep asking, and that's the reason why a few years ago, 3 years ago, some friends and I founded Policy Shapers, for example. And there's so many organizations. There's Yaga, there's Budgets, there's Civic Eye, Code, and all those organizations. The central theme is how do we get the people who should be part of policy because they're the majority, which is us, the young people, people under 30, people early 30s, mid 30s, people who actually suffered who would suffer longer the wrong policy decisions, like the wrong decisions that we made with our oil over the past 50 years. We are the ones suffering it more. Because we didn't save, because we didn't invest in anything positive, people just stole it. Abacha, there's so much Abacha loot coming back every year, like it's Christmas, like it's for like Christmas, because of all of those kind of things. We're the ones going to suffer more. So if people keep making wrong decisions, wrong policy decisions, so we are the hope, and we actually need to be the ones. I think that's why this program was organized. The fact that we need to be able to identify the SDGs that we're passionate about, and become voices for that. Your tweets might think your tweet is just simple, but people are actually seeing it. So talking about it, asking questions, using media, using every tool at your disposal to ask that the right thing is done. That's the only way. You also join communities. I recently joined the Nigeria Economic Summit Group, and we formed something called the Community of Practice on Youth, which I think you guys should be members of once we are able to sort ourselves out. The Community of Practice on Youth is, so the NESG, I don't know if you guys know the NESG, but the NESG is like WEF, but at the Nigerian level. And the NESG has a lot of connections with government. So most of the folks that we're trying to reach in government, NESG just needs one call and they're in their office the next day. And so it's a good network. So I've advocated for a long time, and I'm like, maybe it's time that we even go closer. And for those people who are able to hear, even join political parties, even be part of the system, right? And begin to speak even from a closer distance, because maybe outside there on social media, we might seem like we're very far away. But if we get closer to the rooms where decisions are made, maybe we can have the opportunity to ask for the right thing to be done. Because this curriculum thing has been on for more than 30 years. If you're shouting curriculum. But the same thing that I learned is what my younger sister, who is 13 years, I'm 31 years, my sister who's 30 years or 12 years, is going to learn the same thing that I learned in school. It doesn't make any sense. There's no way she's going to get a job in the new world, except she goes on to build skills that will prepare her for her own generation. So I just think that we need to shout louder, get into the spaces where we can influence the thing and actually be the hope, because that's the only way it's going to get done. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ebenezer. Thank you so much for the questions that you answered. I really gained a lot of knowledge.
Thank you guys for having me. Sorry about the time, stretching the time, but I hope you found this useful. I'll send the documents via email to the slide document via email to Chimezi, and yeah, we'll definitely be in touch. I'll let you guys know if any opportunity comes up that I think the SDSN should be part of. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Ebenezer. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for sharing with us your experiences. Your story has been really inspiring, and I'm sure that a lot of us are inspired to want to do more. The things that you've achieved, even from the small corner of your family house, as you said, it's really a lot. You've gone so global, and it's an inspiration to other youths like us. We really appreciate your time. We appreciate you coming here today to discuss with us. We really learned a lot. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for honoring our invite.
Thank you.
Okay, so at this point, I don't know if anyone has any other questions to ask, but since there's no other questions to ask, I just want to drop a few highlights from what I got from today's webinar. For the first time, I actually heard that distance learning started in 1728. Actually, I feel like that's saying there's nothing new under the sun is real, because I thought distance learning was something that just happened of recent, but from Mr. Wikina's slides and from his teachings today, he's discussed with us that it actually started in 1728 and it was actually done through correspondence. So this is a very good insight. Also, I liked the fact that you were able to draw out remote learning from digital literacy, which is actually a type of learning that is favorable to everyone from all walks of life. You differentiated how learning has transformed from first industrial revolution. Now we're in the fourth industrial revolution, and we can see that in the fourth industrial revolution, remote learning is actually what a lot of us do. I mean, I'm also involved in it. I know that a lot of us are also involved in it.
Okay, so I really learned a lot from today's webinar. It's been really, really insightful. Multiple intelligence is something that most people do not really know about. Some people know about it, but don't fully understand it. But it's very important aspect of education to know that we are intelligent in different ways, and we cannot compare one's intelligence to another. Mr. Ebenezer, I'm really grateful for the time you spent with us today. I believe that the whole of the River State SDG team is also saying thank you to you for giving us so much insights on digital literacy, on the SDG 4, quality education, and also remote learning. You also went out of your way to give us different sites through which we can get certifications. For example, you mentioned Google Scholar. You talked about mocks, and now we can get online certifications, degrees, even from universities abroad, and how their tuition fees are actually a bit lower than physical classes, and then the certificates do not even indicate that it's online. I believe these are things that working professionals can key into. You can work and also earn certifications at the same time. So this has really been really very insightful today. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you so much, guys. So can I leave? I will share the slide shortly with Chimes here. I'm just
Yes, thank you very much. And we'll do well to also connect with you on social media. Thank you very much.
Okay,
You
I can share my link to my LinkedIn if you guys want to connect.
Yes, yes.
To connect to add you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'll be inviting the state representative to say one or two things before we close today's webinar. So, Mr. Chimeze, are you here?
Yes. All right. Good evening, everyone. It's been an interesting session with Mr. Ebenezer Mikin. I mean, I thought the first one was the best, but then this other one has been trailing for me, and I really wish we had much time. You saw how he was actually rushing some of the presentation, but then I believe we've learned a thing or two from what he has said today. And like we all know, the goal of this program is to train us and equip us to become SDG advocates. At the end of this program, each of us will choose which SDG we want to be advocating for. And I mean, so it's really a good step in our career and in our effort to see that our society becomes a better place. So thank you everyone for joining in today's webinar. And this is the last webinar series we'll be having. So our next program will be the community physical project, and I will drop the details in the group of how we're going to go about that, and from there we'll pick up. So wouldn't want to keep us longer here. So thank you for joining. If you have further questions, probably you could Mr. Ebenezer, we can reach him. I believe most of us might already know him, so you can follow him. You can reach him via his LinkedIn, or you can send the questions to any of us, then we'll forward it to him, and I believe he'll be glad to respond to our questions. Thank you everyone, and have a good rest. Thank you. So guys, we've come to the end of the webinar, so thank you so much for joining us.